So I'm going to go ahead and do the formal introduction thing and we will get rolling. So my name is Erica Charis. I'm the outreach librarian here at the Stan Getz Library. I'm super glad you guys are here tonight. We are bringing in some folks from the Cornell Hip Hop Collection, which is the world's largest hip hop culture archive. Super excited to have them all here. Stay for as long as you can. If you have to leave early, though, make sure you grab the yellow sheets that are around. Those highlight the stuff that's right here in our collection for you to dive into hip hop culture, hip hop history, all that kind of stuff right here in our collection. But let me tell you a little bit about the guys that we have on the screen here. Ben Ortiz is the big guy on the big screen right now, is the assistant curator of the Cornell Hip Hop Collection. And DJ Rich Medina, who's not with us but will be popping in later, is on the Hip Hop Collection Advisory Board, and he's the world-renowned DJ, musician, and media personality. And then Breakbeat Lou, who is the smaller dude. If you want to wave, Lou, just so they know. Advisory board for, there you go. There's the man. Cornell Hip Hop, founder of the Ultimate Breaks and Beats compilation series. So I'm going to turn this over to these guys. They'll tell you more about themselves, I'm sure, and more about this amazing collection.
and then we started with the Street Beat Records in 1986 to 1990. And like I was saying, the best thing that we can describe the compilation being is that we were instrumental for keeping hip hop, meaning that all the records that were being sampled from the Dr. Dre's to Judge Blaze, Jay Dilla to Pete Rock and everybody in between Questlove were being sampled from our particular compilation. I mean, the big responsibility that we had was just bringing those foundation beats to the culture, so the culture can continue in the way that it was intended to. Our biggest known credibility as far as records being sampled from us was Rob Bass It Takes Two, which was something that took directly from us. No really change. My Philosophy by KRS-One. Um, the numerous Public Enemy records were used from us. Uh, there was a whole bunch of stuff that was sampled by Jay Dilla, especially on the Shining album, and numerous other producers. So I mean, that's the best way that I can describe it, is that we were the one of the main vocal points that.
Can you all hear me?
You get that?
You froze right at the end, Lou. Right, froze right at the end. See if you can close any browsers or anything that's sucking up bandwidth on your computer,
Right at
anything
the
like
end.
that.
Okay, so let me know where I left off.
You were talking about all of the music
Yeah, I don't
industry.
have any. I don't have anything on right now. Everything is just
Okay,
this.
all right. And audience, what was the last thing that you heard? I heard him say that people from Jay-Z to Questlove, folks that have sampled his particular mixes. Did you all catch
Yeah,
anything after that?
no, we caught it about through there as well. And I want to say, because we have 5 or 6 people on the live stream right now, we had a little difficulty on the streaming bit, and we just got sound like 5 minutes ago. So we're having technical difficulties all around, but we're hanging in. We're gonna do this.
This is just,
Not a problem. So
yeah.
so back. No, what we can do. Okay, what I can say is, like, everybody from, I would say, Just Blaze, Jay Dilla, Pete Rock, Molly Mall. They all sample nitbits from our compilation. And most notable, I would say, that people may know is the Rob Bass It Takes Two track that was taken directly from what we put out. My Philosophy by KRS-One, also directly taken from what we put out.
Ouch.
It's all you, Ben.
It's back to me. I'm gonna re-invite these guys. Did you all see Rich was there for a second?
Yeah, we did see him for a hot second there.
That was weird. It was like a ghost of him or something. So, and I've got some folks telling me that yeah, they were unable to hear our audio for a while. Um, the lesson Today's lesson, kids, is make sure you have tons of bandwidth when you do this stuff. Um, so um, I'll start telling you a little bit about the Cornell Hip Hop Collection as we try to get Rich and Lou back. Um, I wonder if while I'm talking that Ernie, you can re-invite them. I don't know if you've got their email addresses. Actually, I'll just do it here. How's the weather out there today, party people?
It's cold. It's not too bad. It's gonna get wet and messy tomorrow, but it's not bad now.
Yeah. Well, same out here. It's about 15 degrees right now. You know, we're making up for these last 6 years of nice, weird, warm weathers, our winters. So the Cornell Hip Hop Collection is a research archive. It's located in the Division of Rare and Manuscript Collections. Other types of materials that we have here are, for example, cuneiform tablets from ancient Sumeria. Those are the oldest things we have in the rare and manuscript collections division. Those are about 5,000-year-old clay tablets that are exactly the same form factor and size as this thing right here, which I think is interesting. That form factor has always worked, going all the way back to those tablets, which are the first books. They're the first time that a system of writing was portable in human culture. Fast forward to ancient Egypt, we have papyrus scrolls. Fast forward to medieval Europe, we have prayer books that were used, beautiful hand-painted prayer books that were used by monks and other religious proceedings in the church. We have a copy of what's known as Shakespeare's First Folio, which is the first time that William Shakespeare's works were published together in the same volume. Fast forward to the Civil War. Cornell University was founded in 1865. What happened that year, folks, students? What happened in 1865? That's right. The Civil War ended. The Civil War actually ended the year that we were founded. And around about that period in time, our first president of this university, his name was A.D. White. He started collecting ephemera from the abolitionist movement and the Civil War itself. Does anyone know what ephemera is? Ephemera is material that was not intended to last beyond its immediate purpose. So for example, I'm looking at my desk, I've got this random pen that I got from a new cafe that opened up on campus the other day. This is ephemera. This is not meant to last for all time. This is meant to serve a purpose right now and then be discarded. But if someone saves this, I think we just got someone in the audience there. Rich, are you with us?
Oh, hello.
Hello. And Lou's back. Wow, look at that. When it rains, it pours. All
Sorry,
right.
guys.
All right. Your camera's looking a little hazy. That's all to the good.
Camera's extremely hazy. I had to get on someone else's machine.
Oh, good. Well, we got
I'll
you
get
now.
up here to the right corner so you can really see the
All
entire.
right.
1 2 1 2. Can you hear me now, guys?
Yeah, we got you.
All right.
Your mic
So
sounds amazing.
Rich and Lou, I am in the middle of telling them a little bit about the department that the Hip Hop Collection is part of. I was just explaining that our university was founded at the time of the Civil War, specifically the year that it ended. So we have a lot of things documenting that particular moment in time. Our most famous thing is a copy, one of 5 surviving copies of the Gettysburg Address in Abraham Lincoln's handwriting. There are only 5 that survive. We have one here. And alongside that, we have many different scrapbooks and things documenting all sorts of things from the Civil War, the abolitionist movement in particular. So alongside that, and following that tradition, again, that was actually the first collection here at Cornell. Alongside that, we have this hip hop collection, which came to us in the year 2007 following the production of a book called Born in the Bronx, a visual record of the earliest days of hip hop. The materials that went into that book came to Cornell the year after the book came out as the institutional home for the materials in the book: photographs, vinyl records, and party and event flyers. And I have some examples here that I will show you guys once we get a little more into that. And I think, Rich, since we got you, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your history in hip hop. Tell us about your career. And towards the end of this program, we'll talk a little bit about current projects that you have going on.
How you doing, everybody? First of all, sorry I'm late. Um, my name is Rich Medina. Consider myself a working class disc jockey, um, poet, writer, music producer. Um, been in the business 20 plus years now. And what else about my career? I love music. I love education. I love culture. And being involved with the Cornell Hip Hop Collection has really opened me up in terms of my understanding of historical preservation and what goes into archiving and making sure that things are preserved for a long time to come. And, you know, this is a piece of diversification for my career. My first time really diving into this side of the world on a heavy level, and really feeling lucky to be here.
Rich, did you talk about your college experience at all?
I didn't.
Where did you go to college, Rich?
My college experience went down actually at Cornell University. I graduated from Cornell in '92. I played 4 years of basketball there. Played 1 season of semi-pro ball on my way out, and then realized that I'm not going to the NBA and got a real job. And I got a real job and realized that I wasn't cut out for a real job, and went back to what I was doing since childhood, which was hip hop, DJing, b-boying, graffiti, MCing, and knowledge itself, all the above. So, you know, getting away from basketball, I knew I was probably a few years away from the NBA. I didn't want to rehab my shoulder and make peanuts and then try to go back and do it all over again. And a couple buddies of mine had a local DJ crew that were making decent money. And I've been DJing since I was 10, 11 years old. I brought my turntables to Philadelphia for therapy, basically coming out of a shoulder surgery and having to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and answer to a dude that I really didn't like that much. And here we are today. I walked away from the bread, I walked away from the security, I walked away from all the creature comforts of the American dream to be a DJ and write poems and whatever other type of craziness that comes across my plate. And that craziness has led us to being here. So it's been a long, strange trip, but I'm still strapped in.
All right. And following what Rich said about being a Cornell alumnus, that's actually how we met. Rich was on campus for his 20th reunion last summer, summer 2012, I believe. And I had heard that Rich Medina was on campus, and I've known about who Rich was since the late 90s, and I reached out to him on Twitter. I said, while you're here, would you like to come by and check out this hip hop collection? And he wrote back and said, sure, no doubt. And that's how Rich and I met. And upon our first meeting, I was showing him some old cassette tapes that we have in the collection that were recorded directly from the mixer of DJs like Afrika Bambaataa, Charlie Chase, Tony Tone, and Rich was looking at these cassette tapes, and we mentioned that they were from the archive of a man named Breakbeat Lenny. And Lenny started Ultimate Breaks and Beats alongside Lou, who we have with us today. And Rich and Lou have known each other for some time. So Rich, my recollection is that you texted a photo of the cassette to Lou, and he replied to you that was actually his handwriting on the cassettes. And so that's how we began our relationship with Breakbeat Lou. So Lou came into the fold very, very shortly after Rich did, and they've both been integral members of our advisory board for the better part of 2 years now. And I wonder if I can get you both to talk about your first impressions of the Hip Hop Collection upon seeing it for the first time, learning about it a little bit more towards the beginning, and then tell us a little bit about what it's come to mean for you and what it's come to mean for the hip hop community at large? And Rich, let me start with you, since you were, like, as I pointed out, the first one to see it.
On site, I, I can't think of a very educated way to say it. I was just blown away. My wig was pushed back. I didn't know. I couldn't believe that my alma mater, not necessarily an institution known for its gravitation towards things like hip hop, was so deeply entrenched in ensuring safe passage of materials based on a culture that I live, eat, sleep, and breathe. That just really blew me away. And then on top of that, the love and care that Ben Ortiz and Catherine Regan were putting into making sure that they were paying a sincere chronological attention to what's going on, what has been going on in hip hop over the years, and doing their best to document the history in a credible manner. Just that bedside manner, combined with the fact that this was in the Kroc Library at Cornell University, one of the biggest public institution archives in the country. So here's this collection of materials based on my lifestyle, and it's at my alma mater. So number one, my education and my lifestyle were meeting in the same place for the very first time. And then, to be brought onto the advisory board and to be asked as an expert, for lack of a better way to put it, about decisions that the organization was making about who to speak to and programs to run, and how can we get this information into curriculum and not just in the archive. To be part and parcel of that has been really priceless for me in terms of making my education and my lifestyle live as one thing, all the way up until meeting Ben Ortiz and Catherine Regan the way I did. My education was something that I told people in my lifestyle about. Now, they coexist in a very sincere manner, and I can't tell you what that's done for me, for my business, for my perspective on the world, for my perspective on how I can impact young people beyond doing speaking engagements in high schools and youth detention centers and things like that. Now, I'm able to be at an academy level and be taken seriously because the Cornell Hip Hop Collection is such a serious thing. And I'm really, really, really proud to be a part of it.
Very cool. And Lou, before you start, let me just mention that Rich is mentioning Catherine Regan, who I didn't quite get to mention just yet. She is our curator of rare books and manuscripts. She's actually the person who had the vision to bring the Hip Hop Collection to Cornell in the first place back in 2007. She's the person who put me on the advisory board that year. She's the person who hired me as the assistant curator years later. And she is the other person who works with the Hip Hop Collection, not quite full time like I do, but she spends a very serious chunk of her time working with me, developing the Hip Hop Collection and making it into what it is. And I know that she's watching right now on YouTube, so let's all give a shout out to Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
Hey.
All right. So Lou, can you follow up with that?
No, most definitely. I mean, the way I echo everything that Rich just mentioned. In my perspective, was this: I feel, that the hip hop is more or less like a great, dish. I mean, when you have a great dish that is carried on through, let's say, generation family recipe book, you tend to have all the original ingredients. Now, what Cornell has done is that they've, like any other situation that I've seen that have approached hip hop and try to exploit it, they most definitely have tried to come across and grasp the original roots and the original foundation ingredients that it has. So by them using that approach in putting the collection together, by contacting the people that were there from the beginning, even before the collection, the culture had a name, that spoke volumes to me. So I mean, even though when Rich spoke, he told me why it broke down to me and everything, and then I had the pleasure to meet Ben and Catherine. Just seeing people that was already involved, from the Joe Consos, from the Afrika Bambaataa, from the Grandmaster Caz. These are guys, Grand Wizard Theater. These are guys that I grew up along with the culture to form what we know now as hip hop. So by those ingredients being in place, then there's no other recourse that I have but to come alongside and co-labor with Cornell, because they have the right vision, the right heart, and the right approach to making this something that's preserved and respected, and how we also believe in each one teach one, so that we can able to do that to the next generations to come, to see that the hearsay that they hear from the pioneers is not just that. There is concrete proof that things were done.
All right. Um, so I'm gonna keep talking a little bit about the types of materials that we have uh, in the collection, and for the students in the audience, you hear us referring to hip hop as a culture, not a form of music. Obviously, music is extremely relevant for you all being students at the Berklee School of Music. But in my pre-conversations with Erica there, we thought it would be good to actually explain why hip hop is not just a music but a culture. So in in uh, in breaking that down, um, a lot of times students ask me in classrooms, what is the difference between hip hop and rap? And I wonder how many of you have wondered that. Let me see a show of hands. Has anyone ever wondered what's the difference between rap and hip hop? Some people are raising their hands. um, so hip hop is usually described in a sort of a general sense as being made up of four core art forms. And those art forms are MCing or rapping, DJing or turntablism, graffiti writing, and b-boying, b-girling, breakdancing, which I might expand that and just say hip-hop dance, because it does include so many other forms of dance that are not just b-boying, b-girling, and breakdancing, right? Popping, locking, and so forth. And then those four core elements being held together by this fifth element known as knowledge. Knowledge is a word that Afrika Bambaataa used, and we'll talk about him in just a moment. He's the person who named hip hop hip hop. He is our visiting scholar here at Cornell University. What that means is he travels to campus several times a year to lecture and give performances. So as the person who originally described and named hip hop, he said, there's a fifth element, and it's knowledge. And that means using those four art forms to communicate knowledge, to learn from one another, to disseminate culture, to blend other cultures into one another, into making something new, into making your art form. Learning about yourself, right? Knowledge of self, like Lou said, knowledge of each other, knowledge of people who are different than you, knowledge of your history, knowledge of the rest of the world's history. That all sounds very lofty, but that is what makes hip hop culture. When we say rap music, um, that term is usually something that the music industry finds convenient to use for hip hop music. But what it's really doing is only referring to one of those core elements. So for example, you've all heard of rap music. Have you ever heard of rap dancing? How about rap painting? Does that make sense? Or rap fashion? Or rap slang? Maybe rap slang, maybe that works. But really, hip hop is a bigger umbrella for the entire culture. So to say rap music only acknowledges that particular art form within the music, and it also de-acknowledges DJs slash producers who are also very much part of the music making process. So rap music is really a term inside the culture you don't hear very often, right? So now that we know what makes hip hop a culture, let's take a look at some of the types of artifacts that we have here in the hip hop collection. I have a few examples of things that, as artifacts, and in some cases ephemera, which is that word I was using before, we can learn about the culture, right? First-hand documents. So the first thing I'm going to show you is an original piece of artwork that a man named Buddy Esquire created that became one of the original flyers. As many of you might have heard, collecting flyers is kind of a big thing in hip hop. Collecting old party and event flyers. And if I zoom in, I wonder, can everyone in the audience read any of that?
Yeah, we got Crash Crew versus Theodore Fantastic MC.
Excellent, and that's 1980, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is incredible documentation. This is a very dense document. This tells us who, what, when, where, and why. It was a Halloween showdown, right? Collecting flyers is a huge thing inside hip-hop culture, particularly flyers from the pioneering era, which is what this is, 1980. This is the original document by, again, Buddy Esquire. His signature is written on the back, as you can see. You can see where the marker bled through the paper there. This is the real deal, and it's important that I mention something kind of sad to everybody. Buddy Esquire, who was known as the Flyer King, whose archive lives here at Cornell University, he actually tragically passed away about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I believe. There was a huge outpouring of love and respect for Buddy as one of the unsung heroes of hip-hop culture during the course of the last 2 weeks. He was a good friend of ours, and I kid you not, he was the sweetest person you ever met. If anybody had sort of a an excuse to act like, I'm the man, I'm this, that, and the third, it would have been Buddy Esquire, but he was the exact opposite of that, and we all miss him very dearly. And these are, again, some original flyers that he designed. You can go to our website, preservinghiphop.org, and you can see many of his digitized flyers. I believe we have roughly 500 digitized on our website.
And these are all handmade, yeah?
Handmade. This is a pre-Photoshop world.
Yeah, they had Photoshop, but they had the old wind-up camera, but you got to be standing inside of you're using it. That was Photoshop.
Yeah.
I mean, to interject on that, I mean, if it wasn't for Buddy Esquire and Joe Conzo, we would not know what the visual aspect of hip hop would have been without those two guys being in our culture.
Right.
Would you
Joe
say the name of
Conzo.
the website again, just one more time, Ben?
Yep. We are at preservinghiphop.org.
Thank you.
.org. And Lou just mentioned Joe Conzo. Joe Conzo, his archive lives here as well. And both he and Buddy had artwork and, flyers and photographs that were in the Born in the Bronx book. That became the original core group of materials in the Cornell Hip Hop Collection. So, Joe Conzo, the New York Times dubbed him the man who took hip hop's baby pictures when they did an article about him, I believe in 2006. We have over 7,000 of Joe Conzo's photographs digitized and available on our website. Joe Conzo is also one of our most involved board members. He has been with the Cornell Hip Hop Collection from day one, alongside Johan Kugelberg, who is the person who actually put that book together. I do have a quick example of some of Joe's work right here with me. This is a photograph of DJ Tony Tone and Easy AD, who are members of a group called the Cold Crush Brothers, who were the absolute top dogs in hip hop in the New York City area shortly after Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five took off and left the New York area to tour. So the Cold Crush Brothers, for those who have never heard of them, please do yourself a favor and look on YouTube and find some of their tracks and their old performances. And I say old performances because you'll get a sense of what hip hop really sounded like back in the pioneering era. The Cold Crush Brothers are also featured in a movie called Wild Style, which is very, very important for anybody who loves hip hop. It's important that you see Wild Style, which was directed by Charlie Ahern, and his archive also lives here at the Cornell Hip Hop Collection. The photographs documenting this particular era tell us so much about that particular time, from fashion to people that are in the crowd to basically people who look like they're having fun. And frankly, you don't see people looking like they're having fun too much in a lot of hip hop imagery nowadays. They're either whining or angry about something. We don't need to go too deeply into the stuff that we're hearing today. I'm sure we all have our opinions about that. So that said, let me toss it back to Rich and Lou. Do you guys have any thoughts about the work of Buddy Esquire and Joe Conzo?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, if the only way we found out about even, what we call jams, they weren't called parties, right? The jams was the flyers that Buddy Esquire created. And then as far as the actual visual, picture aspect, especially with Cold Crush, which was the most popular group in the beginning of the 80s, they were all the pictures that were taken by Joe Conzo. So this 1-2 combination of artists, because that's what I call them both, it was the epitome of us seeing what we were in store for at the jam. Because the flyers, usually the way the Art Deco style that Buddy Esquire used was so different at the time, so that let you know that there was something special that was going to happen. And the pictures, Joe, by the his keen eye that he has, he would take these incredible shots, especially of Cold Crush, which was the main group that he was always surrounded with, that also always painted a picture and saying, this is what you're in store for. This is the caliber of work that you're going to be entertained with. So those two gentlemen, if it wasn't for them, like I said, we would not have a visual evidence of what the culture looked like in the beginning of the era of hip hop.
Rich, do you have any thoughts about Joe or Buddy?
I don't think I could say it any better than Lou just said it. Buddy Esquire's flyers are the stuff that inspired people who created programs like Photoshop and FileMaker and all these things that people use now and assume that it's always been the standard. This guy was doing Photoshop level things with X-Acto blades and whiteout and Sharpie markers and design markers, and it changed advertising. It changed the billboard game in New York City. It's incorporated itself into everyday life in a way that really goes unspoken. Without the demeanor of the Buddy Esquire flyer presentation, there's a great deal of things that we see today that would look very different. So, you have to pay homage to the widespread impact of hip hop, even when you break it down to one person like Mr. Esquire. I mean, what he brought to the table in terms of advertising and promotion and presentation, there would be no such thing as street teams or people handing out hand-to-hand flyers, or when, in the late 90s when the record pools were still alive on a higher level, and people were putting snipe posters up on telephone poles and street lamps just to make sure that you're at eye level to be seen promotionally. All those things are spawned in the birth of Buddy Esquire's work. I think that, and that's not to say that there are not obviously other huge things that have influenced advertising, but I'm saying that you cannot dismiss Buddy Esquire when you're talking about the notion of visual advertising and promotion, whether within or outside of hip hop. As for Joe
Absolutely.
Cocker, how can you say it better than the New York Times? He's a man who took Tupac's baby picture. What type of pictures in the world do people love more than any picture? Baby picture. So
Joe,
Exactly.
yeah, and Joe's photographs.
look at the stark power that comes off of those pictures is one of the most intriguing things to me. When I look at Joe Conzo's pictures, I see power. And the reason I see power is because this is, a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid at the time shooting on film in black and white, taking the time to be a fly on the wall in all these incredible situations and capture them all, for history, for preservation. I mean, Joe's vision as a photographer, just with his eye alone, is powerful. But then when you think about what he's thinking about as a kid when it comes to history and what is this going to mean down the road, and why am I capturing this, and why am I focusing on this person's face in the picture and letting everything else be blurry, and why am I taking these pictures of the blight that we live in the South Bronx, and these beautiful creative things and beautiful creative people who are growing up out of this concrete alongside me. Joe Conzo is a god in my eyes.
And that's another great point, is that his photographs don't only document hip hop performers. He's just taking pictures of his.
Everybody's volume a little bit. I don't know if that's me.
What's the issue with the volume?
Mine just suddenly went extremely low across the board.
Okay.
We can hear you just fine, Rich. But let me mention that Joe also took a lot of photographs of his surrounding environment in the South Bronx. Of course, that's where hip hop originated. So when you see like this photograph right behind me, is there like a glare on that? You can see these burnt out buildings that were all too commonplace in the environment that hip hop was born into. And it gives us a very important sense and understanding of where hip hop actually comes from. And obviously, I function in a college environment most of the time, and I usually measure what I talk about based on what year the freshmen were born. And I like to point out to people that the freshmen this year were born in 1995. 1995. And they probably become aware of music or fans of music around 2000, when they're 5 years old, maybe at the earliest. And by that point, hip hop doesn't look like it comes from a marginalized area of society. So I think that that's a big revelation to young people sometimes, to learn that hip hop actually comes from people who are making something out of nothing, essentially. And I don't mean nothing in a literal sense, but nothing meaning a serious lack of resources. There's a wealth of creativity, creative energy. There's a wealth of musical background and music to dig into in their parents' music collections and things like that. So I think that that's important to point out, and that's something that Joe Conzo's photos do a really important job in teaching us about hip hop history. Other types of materials, just briefly, that we have include things like original artwork. This is a black book. Why is it called a black book when it's actually brown? Because most of these sketchbooks that were done by graffiti artists were just done on those sort of cheap drugstore black sketchbooks that you can buy for $5. This one happens to be brown. It doesn't matter. Another interesting aspect of these is that they contain kind of notes and other tags from other artists. So every black book contains upwards of 40 different artists' work. Some of them are pieces on the inside. Some of them are just tags. This book was owned by a man named Is the Wiz, who was one of the legends of graffiti. who has sadly passed away also. Um, Somebody drew this for Wiz. If you look at that character right there, it says to is. So this work was not actually done by him. So that's why these black books are really important, dense data points for learning about hip hop. And as I mentioned, graffiti art is part of hip hop. That's a whole separate lecture about why that is. I don't know if we have time for that. I want to make sure we get Q&A from the audience. And obviously, things like this is hip hop. I bet that blows your mind, right, party people?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's definitely hip hop, but homies in the brown shirt is going crazy.
And the mullet is bananas.
Woo!
That brown shirt is outrageous.
And the porn stash and everything. Oh, check it out. That looks like, what's his name from Knocked Up? Seth Rogen. So this is a record from Afrika Bambaataa's record collection, which has upwards of 60,000 pieces of vinyl. And it came to us in December. This is something that we've been preparing and working with for a little over a year, but it physically arrived on campus in December. No one can tell what this is yet, right? Because it's been obscured. The title of the album's been obscured. A brief. I wonder if Rich and Lou, can you briefly just tell us why would a DJ need to obscure the title of an album?
Okay, the main reason, especially in I would say mid to late 70s, the way you maintain an upper hand on your next block's competition was having records that they didn't have. So when you picked up that might have what we call the breakbeat, that's one upper hand that you have over somebody, and the way you kept it that way is by letting them know that there's no way possible you're gonna get the name of this record because I'm gonna do everything in my power to disrupt the title or disrupt the artist or whoever it might be. So we used to just distort records from just putting simple stickers on to literally putting them in water and taking the label off, so we couldn't know exactly, we knew what it was, but the next person wouldn't.
And you can see right here that even the label on the vinyl's been obscured. I really honestly don't know what this album is. I just know they have funny clothes and haircuts. I'm going to have to go and do my research. We might have to play this one just to know what it is and Shazam it, which is, it goes against the ethos that that Lou was pointing out, where DJs would try to hide what their sources were. But we just don't live in that world anymore. It's really easy for people to learn what music you're playing. So DJs have all new tricks up their sleeves today, and hopefully the audience will ask Rich and Lou some questions about that. But Bambaataa's record collection is another example of surprising artifacts in a hip hop archive. When you see these guys, you don't think hip hop, but the truth is they were in the collection of the most important DJ, arguably, in hip-hop history, Afrika Bambaataa, a.k.a. the Master of Records. That was his nickname. That's what people called him way back in the day. And the reason they called him the Master of Records is because he was good at finding obscure sources and things that were from all different types of musical genres from all across the world. Music that people wouldn't expect to hear. He was moving way beyond the James Brown and Sly Stone stuff that pretty much every other DJ had in their repertoire. This group, as I'm reading the back of this thing, I think they're called Avalanche. I could be wrong about that. Nevertheless, it is what it is. This is a hip hop artifact. I think we just lost Rich. Am I right about that? Yeah. So now that you've seen some artifacts, I got to point this out. If anybody has ever seen Afrika Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, you might recognize this mask with the feathers on it, sort of a Mardi Gras sort of thing. that they would wear on stage. And again, it's surprising to a lot of people to think that anyone involved in hip-hop would dress like this. But again, we're talking about drawing upon all kinds of different influences to make hip-hop, including Parliament Funkadelic and groups like that who were dressing kind of like this on stage. So Rich and Lou, I hope to see you guys wearing something like this at your next performance.
We all do all the time.
Almost rocked mine today.
I love mine.
So I've shown you some examples from the archive. I do want everyone to go check out preservinghiphop.org so that you can see a lot more of what we have. Obviously, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and you can see a lot more of what we have and connect with us. So Lou and Rich, I wonder if you can briefly tell us about some current projects you got going on just before we have some Q&A from the audience. And why don't we start with Lou, because I know you got some things brewing in the UBB side of things.
Yes. Right now, currently, I'm in the process of releasing two 45 box set compilations. One being called Not Just Breakbeats. That's going to be a compilation of hip hop with MCing and just instrumentals that right now in the process may feature Ismarquee, Pro, Laura Finesse, and I'm in the process of talking to some other people, hopefully Juju from the Beatnuts. So that's going to be that part. And then the other one is going to be called Keeping Hip Hop, and that's going to be another 545 box set, which is going to have breakbeats that were at one time or another being considered to be put on the compilation, but were not really didn't make the cut for the particular first 25. So those I'm going to use some of those, and then the whole UBB we're going to have figurines, which you already released 2 already, and then we're going to have a clothing line that's coming out also with T-shirts, hoodies, and caps, stuff like that that's coming through. And besides that, I'm touring a little bit more on the DJ circuit. So, just stay tuned for a city near you.
And I want to do a quick plug. I mean, at the very least, music lovers in the audience, download from any number of sources the Ultimate Breaks and Beats compilations that Lou is talking about, because it's unbelievable music that I don't think we get to hear very much today. It might be a different case for Berkeley students. I'm not quite sure, but I've discovered and learned a lot ever since I started listening to the Ultimate Breaks and Beats compilations. There's a lot that I had heard, but a lot that I did not had not heard prior to that. So I think that listening to Ultimate Breaks and Beats is a true educational experience for any music lover, but particularly for hip-hop heads. And right about now is where I'll quote, I believe it was Rich's good friend Babito Garcia at one point said, "A real hip-hop fan only listens to about 25% hip-hop and 75% other things." So with that, let me turn it over to Rich, and I hope you can tell us a little bit about some of your current projects, especially Afro Beatles.
Wow. Projects. That's my middle name right now, feels like. I recently designed my very first record bag, 7-inch record bag with and we didn't really get into that conversation today, but for those who don't know, when it comes to vinyl records, there are 12-inch records, and then there are 7-inch records, also known as 45s. I just designed my first 45 bag with a company called Tucker and Bloom. We released the bag in July, and with no advertising and no promotion, we've moved approximately 125 bags to date. About to do
Here it goes.
And our floor model, Breakbeat Lou, is showing you the black ballistic nylon canvas. So that's it. And my good friend Breakbeat with the crown royal purple on the inside. It's a special thing, very special.
45's not included.
Yeah,
most definitely not.
That's your problem. So we have the bag. Thank you, Lou. That was fantastic, man. It never happened to me before my whole life. That was beautiful. We got to do this more often.
There you go.
About to begin merchandising my own Rich Medina materials. I'm a working class DJ, as I described myself before. Some of the tools that people need when they come to my events: you might need a party whistle, you might need a hand towel, you might need an extra shirt to put on because you're sweating. So we're in the, the final stages of organizing a merchandising campaign. Ben, you mentioned Afrobeat. I have an event called Jumpin' Funk, which is the original American Afrobeat party. We started in 2001 in New York City at Shine. We have since toured the world. We've been all over Asia, all over Europe, all over the United States 3 times a year. And just did a collaboration with the Broadway play Fela on Broadway. And we're bringing Sard Ngauja, Tony-nominated actor who played Fela in the original play, to come down and perform with us here in Philadelphia on the 25th. Shows hanging out my ears, opportunities hanging out my ears, more work to do with Cornell Hip Hop Collection. We have our plans about to fall in order for the spring, summer, and the fall. Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of being an independent, and it's also, I think you can be an independent and do your thing in any capacity, but one of the beautiful things about hip-hop is that I can definitely say that hip-hop prepared me to deal with my alma mater in a different way after graduating from my alma mater.
Definitely. So with that, it always strikes me that it really just feels like the tip of the iceberg as we near the end of every presentation and every panel discussion and every class session. So I don't want to shortchange the audience, and I want to just quickly turn it into the Q&A portion, if that's all right. Erica, I'm not sure if you want to facilitate that, but I can actually see everybody there. So if you want to pass the mic to whoever has a question about the Cornell Hip Hop Collection, about hip hop culture, about hip hop, anything related to hip hop really, or about Rich and Lou and their projects and their histories, by all means, fire away.
Sure.
And before we do that, I have a very feisty 6-year-old burning holes in me, so I need to move along in a little bit myself.
All right.
Unfortunately.
What's up, Kamal?
Kamal, you got some fans. Just say hi.
Yeah.
Well, can I kick stuff off with a quick question?
Please.
In terms of getting access to your collection from here, you guys have got stuff on the web, and we've been tweeting through this whole thing. So I tweeted out the link that you gave, the Preserving Hip Hop. But in terms of the actual collection, if somebody had a way to get out to you, that's a public thing. You make an appointment. How does that all work in terms of getting access to that sort of stuff?
Yes, we are adamant that the Hip Hop Collection is for everybody. It is for researchers and fans. It is for college students and people who have never set foot in higher education before. It's extremely important to us to be accessible, and the way that you can access the collection is to make an appointment with us. All of our contact information is at preservinghiphop.org. You would have to let us know if you plan to come to campus. And as a research archive, it's not a museum. A lot of people think I just had a guy show up today who said, "Where's the museum portion?" And I said, this is a research archive. What you do is you request materials, and then we bring them out to you, and you can look through the materials. Sometimes you use the white gloves if you want to feel like angels and demons, that kind of thing. Remember that scene in that movie? We also, as I think it's obvious. We try to make ourselves as available as possible in this particular way using video chat. I think that this is working pretty well. You guys could really see the artifacts that I had and read some of the data on them. In a few weeks, I've got a joint class presentation using Google Hangouts. I'm going to be talking simultaneously to a classroom at SUNY Buffalo and a classroom at Quinnipiac University at the exact same time, giving them a tour of the hip hop collection and some of our archives. And then for and again, you know, if you're not able to make it to campus or you can't schedule a video chat with us, look at our website. We have a ton of stuff digitized already. We're going to continue digitizing things and making them available on our website. And then there's other little things like sometimes we do pop-up exhibitions at conferences. We did one in New York City at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture back in November. We just did an episode of Crate Diggers on Fuse TV. I believe their season finale was about Afrika Bambaataa's collection, so they were here interviewing us. So you can see some of our material that way. So there's no shortage of accessibility, and if anyone has any questions, reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or drop us an email. And Catherine and I, the two people running this whole show, will get back to you with the best of our ability and include you in the fun. Good question.
So I am curious to go back to the question of DJs keeping their set kind of private and unique, and I'm curious if is that limited to just personal technique and style nowadays? As Ben was saying, you know, it's easy for folks to figure out what pieces of music you're using and checking into your influences and the genres that you're coming out of, but how do, in your opinion, are the best DJs out there keeping their set unique and from being taken from other folks?
Well, I would say this, and not because Rich is here, but Rich is a perfect example of what a true DJ is as far as, you know, being true to his craft. Besides him playing what we call the regular type of music, the hip hop, the R&B, the house, or whatever you want to call it, he has a niche on himself that he plays. He's like, to me, top of the line of the Afrobeat culture. I mean, he knows it ins and outs. He knows not just the music, but he knows the production aspect of it. He knows the people behind it. And that's how it was with us back in the days. The reason they call Bambaataa Masters of Records is because in New York, we were very integrated as far as radio station. We had a radio station called WABC, which played everything from Black Sabbath to Michael Jackson. Now, when a DJ, a true DJ, is not, you know, pigeon-toed or put into a genre. We don't have genres. Like, this guy's call himself turntablist, hip-hop DJ, house DJ. And when I grew up back in the early 70s, that was never a category. You was a DJ, and DJ man, you play everything from Willie Colon all the way to Black Sabbath. So what keeps up, I mean, with me, my niche and why I get the gigs I get is because I have records that people have never ever seen in certain aspects. I've been collecting that long. Rich is the same thing. Rich has records that people have never seen, never heard. Besides that, I could give any other DJ my same records, and this is my motto. When you go to see me play, you're gonna go with two things. You're gonna leave your sore feet and memory. You know what I'm saying? So
My favorite.
That's a situation. We go when we play to people to dance, to have an experience. It's an interaction. It's not a thing that you're gonna watch me play music or me become a turntablist or whatever we call and show my skills. I'm there to entertain you. So I mean, I'm a fan of what Rich does, because every time I get a chance to see him, I try to see him, because I know every time I go there, even though they look at me and you know, why am I doing checking them out, but I'm always in the mindset of being a student, so I learned so much from him as far as the Afrobeat music intertwined with the regular stuff that makes him that unique and makes him that a tangible commodity in the DJ realm. And that's why I applaud guys like him, especially when you know you're not going to get the same mumbo jumbo that everybody's going to be playing in the next club down the block.
And I can definitely, thank you, bro. I can definitely return the very same compliment. To answer your question from another angle, in the early 70s, there was no such thing as Shazam. There was no such thing as Google. You couldn't just type some words and some machine goes searching for this data that you want. In 1974, and I was only 5 years old at the time, but
that mean you're old, bro.
yeah, that's cool. Black don't crack.
I know, there you go.
I was a kid. I have a sister who's 18 years older than me. Her first husband was a disc jockey. As a child, as a small child, I remember vividly going to VFW jams and watching him put a 45 on a turntable, poke a hole in a coaster, put the coaster over the record. Every time somebody would come up to the DJ booth and say, "Hey, Johnny, what is that thing you playing there?" He was, I don't know, man. It's just some record I got. Somebody just gave it to me. Because that was his way of maintaining a little bit of a moat between himself and the next person who wanted to be a disc jockey. You had to, it's the essence of competition, You stay at practice 10 minutes longer because you want to be better than the person you're competing in the game as well. Now, you can put a record on and somebody can go shake their phone at a speaker, hear the record, know what the record is, download it at the same time, and then go home and practice playing it, possibly in the same sequence that they heard you play it, because of the way the technology works. That guy can then turn around, go to his uncle who owns a club, who's always complaining about what he has to pay DJs, and say, "Hey, I can do that too. I got all them songs. Would you pay that guy? Just keep it in a family. Pay me." And that cheapens and softens the business. There's in the world, there's many disciplines. The vast majority of those disciplines, you got to go through some turmoil to call yourself a professional. You want to go to college, you take an SAT. We go in the military, you go to boot camp. We could do this for hours, the regimens that you have to go through before you get your badge or your stamp. In the world of DJing and in the world of hip-hop, there's so much lip service to people who find merit in different aspects of the culture. There's so much lip service, you never really know who is a true professional or not. Whether you're watching them in the flesh, whether you're hearing them talk, whether they're a disc jockey, B-boy, B-girl, MC, 3D artist, whatever. You just don't know. So to be able to keep a space of differentiation between you and your competition is vital in any discipline. I think that in our business, because it's the business of giving people something refreshing to deal with in the middle of their week, other than going to church and confessing all the bad things that they've done all week, we are the secular church. We are the preachers for the average everyday person. You come to my party to let your hair down, shake off the fact that your boss pissed you off today, or whatever it is. That's where people come. So we take pride in having a great deal of individuality and pride in our presentation, so that when you walk away from one of our events, myself or Lou, you say, that was I needed that. I didn't even know I needed that. I didn't know I needed to hear 15 records I'd never heard before. But damn, I'm open now. And you go home and get fired up and use that energy on your family, or on your art, or on your work, or on your shaking off your bad day. I think brothers like Lou inspired me, to be at my best. When I see people like Lou in the room, I'm reaching for that obscure record, because I know I'm dealing with the king of obscure records. So my objective of course, I want to keep the dance floor in motion. I want to keep the bar flowing. But I want this dude to continue saying the type of things that he said to you just now about me. That's a notch on my belt. I just got a star on my shoulder. This is the military, So it's that serious.
Excellent. Thank you for that, fellas. That that right there that's the beginning of a whole big lecture right there. We can go in on that. And thank you, Alicia, for the question. Rich, you weren't here at the beginning. That's my little sister that asked that question.
Oh snap! What's up, little Ben? You'll be there for now. We'll know each other properly.
All right.
But just so,
Little Ben and more questions.
there you go. I mean, to finish that off, it is a perfect example of Rich said earlier. I mean, I started DJing in '74, but I wasn't able to earn my stripes to perform in front of a crowd to '78. Right now it's so microwave that because everybody gets Serato or whatever track, and not to the technology because I use it also, but has this disabled, because I'm not saying enabled, disabled the youth, that's the up and coming youth of DJ, to not learn the hard knocks and bumps that we had to experience when we were coming up. You know what I'm saying? They don't have no idea of what it is to carry 12 crates of records to perform in one night. You know what I'm saying? When you have a laptop, and it has more or less tarnished the craft of the DJ, and tarnished the craft of the culture of hip hop, because everything is so here right now. I got it, and that's what I need, without having to, go through the blood, sweat, and tears that we went through in that aspect. And that's the reason why I come alongside and was able to embrace the Cornell voyage, because they are willing to show those blood, sweat, and tears to go along with the history that some people know.
Very cool. Rich, I understand you want to take off in a few minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have no choice. My boss is standing over my shoulder.
So we'll say goodbye to Rich right now, and then we'll take maybe a few more questions if we got a few more minutes. But
thank you, and thank all you guys, Lou and Berkeley and little Ben. Hey, Ben. And, everybody involved. Thank you. It's an honor to be on the screen dealing with this information in this capacity with these people. Ben's a gentleman and a scholar. Breakby Lou's a gentleman and a scholar, and an idol of mine. And Berkeley is somewhere where I actually had aspirations to go, but I wasn't that good. So, to be here as a grown man and talking to the Berkeley School of Music about music and about culture is a phenomenal thing for me. So thanks for the opportunity to be involved.
Absolutely, man. And if you're ever in the area, you come on by. We'll take you through.
I can't wait. I'll be right there.
There you go.
All right. Peace,
Rich.
Rich.
Love y'all.
Love you, bro.
Right. So let's go quickly back to Erica. Now, do we have any other questions in the audience?
I have a question more for you, Ben. I know that this whole collection, some people may say, well, it's a more recent history, but it's still a very daunting task. And this is part of what we're doing now is part of my question, but I'm wondering what you're doing to try and help collect the context about the items that you're doing. If you're doing interviews or those kinds of things, to kind of realize what those artifacts were and are, and how they interrelated, and who the people were and are, and those kinds of things. Excellent question. Thank you for that.
Our core philosophy, I spoke before about our core philosophy with respect to accessibility, but now let me explain our core philosophy about using this material for education. We are very fortunate, and we are right there where we still have many of the creators of this world phenomenon, this super impactful culture, still with us. But tragically, as I pointed out earlier when I was speaking about Buddy Esquire, the Flyer King, we are losing folks right now. We've already lost too many, and for varying reasons. I mean, Buddy was not 90 years old or anything like that. He was, right in his middle ages. So things happen. We have treasures like Breakbeat Lou, like Afrika Bambaataa, like Crazy Legs, Pop Master Fable, Charlie Ahern, Sha Rock, Lisa Lee, all types of different artists, creators who are not only present with us here on Earth at this moment in time, but extremely interested in teaching the world about this culture that, unbeknownst to them as teenagers back in the 70s, this was going to be the biggest thing in popular culture and music and slang and fashion in the year 2014. So they are ready, willing, and able, and we really want them to be the primary educators that we have here working with us. When I'm in front of a class, I'm a proxy. I'm not speaking from their perspective, but I'm doing my best to relate their stories and experiences so that people have a real and accurate and realistic understanding of hip hop culture and history. Regarding something you mentioned, oral histories and recording oral histories and video interviews and things like that. There are actually a lot of people doing that for various reasons. People doing that for dissertations, people doing that as part of a radio show that they happen to host, or some people who are doing it as a pure side project for the love of the culture. Those individuals, or in the case of, is Brian Coleman by chance in the room? Brian Coleman
he did
is
not
an
make it.
author. His wife actually works at Berkeley, and Brian is a Boston area author who wrote a book called Check the Technique: Liner Notes from Hip Hop Classics for the hip hop junkies. He's doing a lot of recordings for his interviews for his books. Our job is to take those interviews and preserve them and make them accessible for education. So we're not actually the ones conducting the interviews, because there are so many other folks doing that. That's not to say we won't do that. That's just we are focusing our energy on making sure that the material that has already been captured is preserved and saved for future generations. I mean, in the same way I'm talking about the Gettysburg Address and Shakespeare, hundreds of years from now, people are going to be looking at this material, learning from it, trying to understand what the world was like at this moment in time, way back in 2014, way back in 1978. So our job is to preserve this stuff, not just for the present, but for future generations.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
So, with that being said about future generations, I'm curious to know from both of you, from your interactions with students and anybody else that you might be doing educational programs with, about the history of hip hop culture. Do you have, well, share your feelings about either hopeful feelings or kind of sad feelings about the perspective that young people today have of hip hop. Like you said, Ben, a lot of people who are 18 right now don't realize where hip hop came from, or they view it just as a music, or they view radio rap as hip hop, and there's like a lot of confusion. And tell me, I'm just curious about your feelings for that, and if you're hopeful that it will shift in like another generation, perhaps with a lot more education.
Yeah.
Okay,
Lou,
yeah,
you got to take that one.
Yeah, I got you. This is what I said. I mean, I had left the game in '95 because I saw the trending that how it was changing. Because what happened, you gotta understand something. What we know as hip hop became corporate in 1981. You understand? So let's take it from that point. Hip hop started with, like we said before, DJ, MC, writer, b-boy. When Run DMC was introduced to the game, there was a picture of only two guys running deep. Where was Jam Master Jay? Nowhere to be found. Then it was progressively, they became more electronic. It started taking all the aspects that we knew from the foundation of the culture. Back to '95, I left the game, because I saw it was really getting crazy. And I have three children. I have a 19-year-old, I have a 21-year-old, and a 13-year-old. My kids, they were blessed that I've always taught them everything that I knew as far as the culture. But meeting their friends, they had no idea who Cold Crush was. They had no idea who Afrika Bambaataa was. So that was one of the pinnacle things for me. And I was like, okay, it was a catalyst for me to come back into this game. Now, me coming back to this game, I have a different outlook than most pioneers. I don't shun the youth in that is, addressing us in this day and age, because the same way we was shunned back in those days, we didn't like it either, because we wasn't embraced when we were doing hip hop. We wasn't embraced when we were writing train. We weren't embraced when we were banging in the tables at lunchtime in the school. So there's no way that you're gonna be able to get a point across about having these youth grasp at the history of it if you don't come alongside and try to learn where they're coming from. Understand? Like Ty the Creator, Drake, Little Wayne, all these guys. I may not agree with everything they do, but I respect it, because the same way, we had the Busy Bees, the Grandmaster Caz, the Kumo D's. There was different flavors of all types of hip hop MCs in those days. So same way there are now. You have the KRSs, the Arabian Rakim, and also you had the Kid and Plays. So by you saying, everybody's saying they're not hip hop, in the way they may be presenting themselves, they're not. But as far as the craft, I cannot take that away from them, because they are being creative. If you really listen to what some of them are saying, good, bad, or indifferent, they are putting on poetic practices in the way their flows are. Not all of them, but some of them do. You know what I'm saying? So I cannot completely shun them across. My main philosophy is, which mottos have each one, but I'm always in the mindset always being a student. I want to learn from them, because the only way we're going to come to a medium is that we are able to absorb from both points of view, not just mine. Just because I'm older doesn't mean that I know everything that is right. I can always learn something that is being brought across. The same way people initially were dissing NWA when they came out, now they consider them legends because they were telling the stories of what was going on in Compton. So there's a real rusty two-edged blade that comes out sometimes, and we're cutting at what we think is wrong, and then when it comes to years in the future, we say, oh man, they were coming with a right point of view. In a sense, so it's a real gray area. But me personally, I embrace everything, because everything that's creative to a certain extent is viable, and it should be, at least noticed. Like, for example, in the beginning when Kendrick Lamar came out, nobody wanted to listen to him. Now Kendrick Lamar is being embraced by both the regular hip hop crowd plus the older OGs that are saying, oh, this kid is really saying something now. So I think we have to be really, really, really careful by labeling whatever we're hearing now not being part of the culture, because we don't see the same, evident attributes that we had when we were growing up. So I'm a little different in that. That's why I guess I get embraced by the fan base that I have now, because I don't shun anybody. I listen to everybody's point of view. If I don't agree with it, I'm gonna let them know. But I'm also gonna say I understand why you feel that way, but I have to understand what I'm feeling also.
That's an excellent question, and just for 15 seconds, let me say that you asked if we were hopeful or not. I'm definitely hopeful. I think that everything, there's an old cliche, everything that is old is new again. And I think that every single class session I do, and this is nearly every day, students ask me, what do you listen to now? Or can you give us some recommendations of some old stuff to listen to? When I hold up albums and things, they take, cell phone pictures of it so that they can go and look for it later. And about the Shazam discussion that we were having earlier, the positive side of that is that I think people do crave good music. People are starving for good music. People are starving for nutrition, right? As Raheem from Furious 5 likes to say, music is like food, and if you eat all junk food, that's not good. You start to crave nutritious food. Anyway, when people are like, hey, what's that? They simply need to look it up, and it's easier than ever to discover and consume good music because of this internet smartphone age that we live in. So that's the positive thing. I think it's simply about the willpower. Instead of just waiting for something to be placed in front of you, join a Facebook group or two. Sign up for the RSS feed of a particular blog about a particular music that you are kind of interested in, and things will be put in front of you, So I always tell that to students, and I think that I'm hopeful. I think people are cycling back to good music. I mean, well, this is such a long discussion about that particular piece. I only wanted to say that one little bit.
But if you think about it, I mean, right now our collection is respected worldwide, right? But back in early '80s, we were a type of Shazam because we were exposing the new generation to the old secretive foundation beats per se. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Even though I'm more in the vinyl aspect when I get booked, but I have no problems with the Serato age. I don't have no problem with the digital age because I think it's something that should be, embraced, but it should be curbed in the sense that everybody that says a DJ, it may not just be that.
Yeah. Yeah, technology has always been a part of being a DJ. It's always been a part of making music, really. And I think some people in the audience there could educate us quite a bit about the history of music theory and musical instruments and things like that. So technology is always an important part of the equation. It's about how you use it. And Lou, correct me if I'm wrong, no matter what the technology of the era, the cream always rises to the top with the human talent using the particular technology. This is the discussion: digital photography versus photography in a dark room, driving a car versus riding a horse. I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of parallels we can draw, but it's always about the human behind the technology.
No, most definitely. It's like a perfect example. I had a conference one time, and Toomey was there, and he says, "What we have to do is master technology, not let technology master us."
There you go.
You understand? So in every aspect, there was change. You think about it from the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, they were using actual strings. In the 60s, with the Pink Floyd album, was the beginning of synthesizers coming in being used. Then you had guys like Kraftwerk that started bringing in the drum machines and more synthesizers. So, and the same way, when we wanted to duplicate the actual funk sound from the 60s and 70s, we couldn't do that until the sampling craze came out. And then what sampling, they say, oh no, you're taking other people's stuff. But we broke every rule as far as music was concerned because we didn't follow the traditional, chord matching or musical note matching. If you look at Public Enemy, they used noise that came out of two totally different spheres and put them together and became something that at first you were like, hey, what the heck is this? But then you had no other recourse to bop your head to it. So the creative aspect of something sampling like Professor or RZA or the Squad or Jay Dilla that most were not really technically considered musicians end up creating what we know as music right now.
There you have it. These are great questions. Maybe take one final question from the audience there? I know somebody's got a question.
No, do you? I think we're all set over here. I think you've stunned us into silence.
Just to wrap up, Lou, can you tell us real quickly where can people find all the information about Breakbeat Lou and UBB projects?
Well, Facebook is Ultimate Breaks and Beats fan page, and everywhere else is Breakbeat Lou. Or just Google it and you'll see everything that's going on. But as far as the media, the network and stuff is usually Ultimate Breaks and Beats on Facebook and Breakbeat Lou and everywhere else. Twitter, Instagram, that's how you can find it.
All right.
Awesome.
And then for us, once again, we are at preservinghiphop.org. You can search for Cornell Hip Hop Collection on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and interact with us that way. And I want to, again, thank Erica and Ernie for inviting.
So I'm going to go ahead and do the formal introduction thing, and we will get rolling. So my name is Erica Charis. I'm the Outreach Librarian here at the Stan Getz Library. I'm super glad you guys are here tonight. We are bringing in some folks from the Cornell Hip Hop Collection, which is the world's largest hip-hop culture archive. Super excited to have them all here. Stay for as long as you can. If you have to leave early, though, make sure you grab the yellow sheets that are around. Those highlight the stuff that's right here in our collection for you to dive into hip-hop culture, hip-hop history, all that kind of stuff right here in our collection. But let me tell you a little bit about the guys that we have on the screen here. Ben Ortiz is the big guy on the big screen right now, is the assistant curator of the Cornell Hip Hop Collection. And DJ Rich Medina, who's not with us but will be popping in later, is on the Hip Hop Collection Advisory Board, and he's the world-renowned DJ, musician, and media personality. And then Breakbeat Lou, who is the smaller dude. If you want to wave, Lou, just so they know. Advisory board for, there you go. There's the man. Cornell Hip Hop, founder of the Ultimate Breaks and Beats compilation series. So I'm going to turn this over to these guys. They'll tell you more about themselves, I'm sure, and more about this amazing collection.
Thank you. All
Your
right, so
mic's not breathing.
Rich and Lou, I am in the middle of telling them a little bit about the department that the Hip Hop Collection is part of. I was just explaining that our university was founded at the time of the Civil War, specifically the year that it ended. So we have a lot of things documenting that particular moment in time. Our most famous thing is a copy, one of 5 surviving copies of the Gettysburg Address in Abraham Lincoln's handwriting. There are only 5 that survive. We have one here. And alongside that, we have many different scrapbooks and things documenting all sorts of things from the Civil War, the abolitionist movement in particular. So alongside that, and following that tradition, again, that was actually the first collection here at Cornell. Alongside that, we have this hip hop collection, which came to us in the year 2007 following the production of a book called Born in the Bronx, a visual record of the earliest days of hip hop. The materials that went into that book came to Cornell the year after the book came out as the institutional home for the materials in the book: photographs, vinyl records, and party and event flyers. And I have some examples here that I will show you guys once we get a little more into that. And I think, Rich, since we got you, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your history in hip hop. Tell us about your career. And towards the end of this program, we'll talk a little bit about current projects that you have going on.
How you doing, everybody? First of all, sorry I'm late. My name is Rich Medina. Uh, consider myself a working class disc jockey, um, poet, writer, music producer. Um, been in the business 20 plus years now. And what else about my career? I love music. I love education. I love culture. And being involved with the Cornell Hip Hop Collection has really opened me up in terms of my understanding of historical preservation and what goes into archiving and making sure that things are preserved for a long time to come. And, this is a piece of diversification for my career. My first time really diving into this side of the world on a heavy level, and really feeling lucky to be here.
Rich, did you talk about your college experience at all?
I didn't.
Where did you go to college, Richard Medina?
My college experience went down actually at Cornell University. I graduated from Cornell in '92. I played 4 years of basketball there. Played one season of semi-pro ball on my way out, and then realized that I'm not going to the NBA and got a real job. And I got a real job and realized that I wasn't cut out for a real job, and went back to what I was doing since childhood, which was hip hop, DJing, b-boying, graffiti, MC.
And then we started with the Street Beat records in 1986 to 1990. And like I was saying, the best thing that we can describe the compilation being is that we were instrumental for keeping hip hop, meaning that all the records that were being sampled from the Dr. Dre's to Just Blaze, Jay Dilla to Pete Rock and everybody in between, Questlove, were being sampled from our particular compilation. Uh, I mean, the big responsibility that we had was just bringing those foundation beats to the culture, so the culture can continue in the way that it was intended to.
It's not too bad. It's going to get wet and messy tomorrow, but it's not bad now.
Yeah. Well, same out here. It's about 15 degrees right now. You know, we're making up for these last 6 years of nice, weird, warm weathers, our winters. So the Cornell Hip Hop Collection is a research archive. It's located in the Division of Rare and Manuscript Collections. Other types of materials that we have here are, for example, cuneiform tablets from ancient Sumeria. Those are the oldest things we have in the Rare and Manuscript Collections division. Those are about 5,000-year-old clay tablets that are exactly the same form factor and size as this thing right here, which I think is interesting. That form factor has always worked, going all the way back to those tablets, which are the first books. They're the first time that a system of writing was portable in human culture. Fast forward to ancient Egypt, we have papyrus scrolls. Fast forward to medieval Europe, we have prayer books that were used, beautiful hand-painted prayer books that were used by monks and other religious proceedings in the church. We have a copy of what's known as Shakespeare's First Folio, which is the first time that William Shakespeare's works were published together in the same volume. Fast forward to the Civil War. Cornell University was founded in 1865. What happened that year, folks, students? What happened in 1865? That's right. The Civil War ended. The Civil War actually ended the year that we were founded. And around about that period in time, our first president of this university, his name was A.D. White. He started collecting ephemera from the abolitionist movement and the Civil War itself. Does anyone know what ephemera is? Ephemera is material that was not intended to last beyond its immediate purpose. So for example, I'm looking at my desk, I've got this random pen that I got from a new cafe that opened up on campus the other day. This is ephemera. This is not meant to last for all time. This is meant to serve a purpose right now and then be discarded. But if someone saves this, I think we just got someone in the audience there. Rich, are you with us?
Oh, hello.
Hello. And Lou's back. Wow, look at that. When it rains, it pours. All right.
Sorry.
All right. Your camera's looking a little hazy. That's all to the good.
Camera's extremely hazy. I had to get on someone else's machine.
Oh, good. Well, we got
I'll
you
get
now.
up here to the right corner so you can really see the
All
entire.
right.
1 2 1 2. Can you hear me now, guys?
Yeah, we got you.
Our biggest known credibility as far as records being sampled from us was Rob Bass, It Takes Two, which was something that took directly from us. No really change. My Philosophy by KRS-One. The numerous Public Enemy records were used from us. There was a whole bunch of stuff that was sampled by Jay Dilla, especially on the Shining album, and numerous other producers. So I mean, that's the best way that I can describe it, is that we were the one of the main vocal points that.
Can you all hear me?
You get that?
You froze right at the end, Lou. Froze right at the end. See if you can close any browsers or anything that's sucking up bandwidth on your computer.
Right at the
like
end.
that.
Okay, so let me know where I left off.
You were talking about all of the music
Yeah,
industry.
I don't have any. I don't have anything on right now. Everything is just
Okay.
this.
All right. And audience, what was the last thing that you heard? I heard him say that people from Jay-Z to Questlove, folks that have sampled his particular mixes. Did you all catch
Yeah,
anything after that?
no, we caught it about through there as well. And I want to say, because we have 5 or 6 people on the live stream right now, we had a little
Oh,
difficulty on the streaming bit, and we just got sound like 5 minutes ago. So we're having technical difficulties all
uh-huh.
around, but we're hanging in. We're gonna do this.
This is just,
Not a problem. So,
yeah.
so it back. No, what we can look at, what I can say is like everybody from I would say Just Blaze, Jay Dilla, Pete Rock, Molly Mall. They all sample nitbits from our compilation. And most notable, I would say that people may know is the Rob Basie Takes Two track that was taken directly from what we put out. My Philosophy by KRS-One, also directly taken from what we put out.
Ouch.
It's all you, Ben.
It's back to me. I'm gonna re-invite these guys. Did you all see Rich was there for a second?
Yeah, we did see him for a hot second there.
That was weird. It was like a ghost of him or something. So, and I've got some folks telling me that yeah, they were unable to hear our audio for a while. Um, the lesson Today's lesson, kids, is make sure you have tons of bandwidth when you do this stuff. Um, so um, I'll start telling you a little bit about the Cornell Hip Hop Collection as we try to get Rich and Lou back. Um, I wonder if while I'm talking that Ernie, you can re-invite them. I don't know if you've got their email addresses. Actually, I'll just do it here. How's the weather out there today, party people?
It's cold.